So do you think the AUKUS deal will go through if the Scott conservatives lose the next election? Asked Bernard August.
Yes, so that's an excellent question. The first thing to consider is after AUKUS was announced, polls showed that a majority of people supported AUKUS in Australia. Polls also showed, and public statements from the opposition Labour Party suggest that they also support AUKUS. So I'm afraid it's a pretty pathetic situation. You know, Australia needs a peace movement, friends. If you have friends and comrades in Australia, egg them on. I mean, it's a mess there, you know, on many issues, on the refugee crisis. I mean, Australia is in open plain sight operating a gulag in islands north of Australia, where they hold their people trying to take refuge in Australia. The levels of racism in that country, I mean, there is in fact no holding the country to account, but there is something inhumane happening there. And I think it's a good idea to egg people on to have a more public peace movement. So I'm afraid I think that whether Morrison wins or loses, I think this deal will stay for a couple of reasons. One, Mark Rudd's Labour Party is not the same Labour Party anymore. You know, Rudd was run out of the Labour Party. He was the Chinese-speaking Prime Minister of Australia who said more closer ties with China is important. Close ties with the US also, you know, it's not a choice. But China is Australia's leading trade partner. It's kind of silly to have a Cold War when you're trading so extensively. So the Labour Party is no longer there. Secondly, I have a very strong feeling that this AUKUS deal is not just about the submarines, but it's also very much about the creation of pseudo US bases in Australia. There's already some basing privileges provided to the United States, but I have a feeling that once they set up these shipbuilding yards, submarine building yards, these will double as bases because US submarines will come and base there. That's what I fear. I don't have any evidence for this, but it's a pattern that one has seen with these arms deals. There's a term that the militaries use called interoperability, where you start buying arms from the United States and then your military can have a close connection with the militaries of the United States. So the second point I'm making, I have no evidence for it. It's just a speculation.
Well, it might be speculation, but you're reminding me that 20 or 30, probably 30 years ago, I heard from my sister who lives in Australia, when there was a peace movement, that the United States has a number, I can't remember the exact number, of secret bases in Australia, and that some of them are nuclear armed.
And that's a violation of the Non-Proliferation Treaty, but who's talking? You know, I mean, we'll sanction the hell out of Iran and suffocate Iran and try to destroy the Iranian people, but nobody will say a word about Israel or Australia, all these other so-called threshold nuclear powers.